Hey guys, as a reminder, you can get your coffee at Brewed. I wish I was actually drinking coffee, but I'm not because I have a life insurance exam. Something about all the death threats said maybe I should get a policy. So that's what I'm doing today. However, I did want to take some time to give you guys an update on some things. So, what we have here today, first, let's start off with SB 213. This is a bill by Adrian Southworth, a fantastic senator. And what you can do is that's a bill we want to support. What that would do would end the state of emergency in Kentucky for COVID-19 immediately. So what that would supporting SB 213, you can call your reps and tell them to support SB 213, but I'm going to give you some other advice on things you can call about. But SB 213 would end the state of emergency in Kentucky for COVID-19 permanently and immediately. This would immediately make sure that we can respond in measured ways to COVID. It would end things like mask mandates, and then businesses could choose if they want to wear masks or not. It would end things like the ability to suspend statutes, get kids back to school. It would accomplish a lot of things. So once again, that is SB 213 by Adrian Southworth. Now, number two on impeachment. So I posted an update yesterday. I want to kind of go through it so everybody understands. So where we are on impeachment, Andy Beshear, the two charges they're looking at is the church ban and the travel ban. For some of you don't know, Allison Ball did a investigation on the church ban situation. And in that situation, it was discovered that an exchange occurred between the governor and KSP. And it literally went, hey, I need you to go attack these churches and stop people from going to them. KSP said, sir, I think that is a First Amendment rights violation. I don't think we can do that. And the governor said, I know it's a violation, but I want you to do it anyways. And so why is that important? Well, if he had just said, I don't think it is, do it anyways, you could at least argue that that's a good faith error. But what he did was acknowledge that what he was doing was in violation of our First Amendment rights for religion. And the problem with that is that shows a premeditation to a civil rights violation of the people of Kentucky, which is a federal crime. So whether or not he committed a crime isn't really up for debate. The Federal Sixth Circuit Court already decided it was an infringement on First Amendment rights. The Allison Ball investigation already stated that what he had done was knowingly infringed on First Amendment rights. And when the impeachment committee asked for more documents in regards to it, at first he didn't turn them in. I don't know if he turned them in again, but when the first time he did it, that would be obstruction now of House business, which is also illegal. So what they should be doing is sending forward to the House floor a civil rights violation of the First Amendment rights with premeditation and knowingly with a obstruction of House business charge attached to it. They should be sending that to the floor. What they were asking him for was more information. And now you could be saying, I don't know why he wouldn't give them more information, because what we have now is really bad. It is really damning to him. If he doesn't have something else that shows some sort of way that he thought through this, that some sort of communications that say, hey, I was not premeditating through it. If literally all we have is what Allison Ball has, this is really bad for him. He has no defense. And so if you want the governor impeached, what you need to do is we have the emails to the impeachment committee, and you can also call once again and leave a message for the impeachment committee and say, Andy Beshear violated my First Amendment rights knowingly and with premeditation. He needs to be impeached because he broke the law. That's it. Just say that, email that, let them know you know from the Allison Ball investigation, he, with premeditation and knowledge, broke your First Amendment rights and just didn't care. That's a problem. address it. Okay. Follow up here now. There's been a little tiff on Facebook. I didn't expect it to go this far between a House Representative Huff, and if you notice, Huff and Lewis on the bill we're about to talk about sponsored it, but Lewis isn't getting flack for it because Lewis didn't do the next step that Huff decided to do. So, Representative Huff put forward a bill, HB 208, so where you understand where the schools are right now. Kentucky has a law that says schools have to be in person, okay? The way they've been able to be not in person is Andy Beshear suspended that statute. Now, a lot of people, even on our side, have different feelings about this. One of the things we get on our side all the time is, well, why do you want to open up these government facilities that are going to go ahead and, indoctrinate the kids and everything else? Hey, I understand where you're coming from, but I think you also have to understand a few things. One, some parents like myself have kind of built our lives around the idea that my kid goes to school. That's like been something we built our lives around, we built our lifestyles around, we built it around the fact that both parents work, they go to school, they're not available all day long, they are not available to sit there be teaching children. It is very clear that's the case. So I understand where you're coming from, where you say, I don't want to have these government indoctrination facilities open anyways. I hear you. I hear that argument. You have to understand people have built their lives around it. And more importantly as well, tax dollars, in fact, to the tune of $16,000 per student this year, are being spent on these kids to sit on a computer all day and learn while they're failing. So what should be upsetting you is when your tax dollars are going to failing children. Now, I think there's an overhaul we could do to our education system that involves things like choice and freedom and allows a lot more flexibility. But the bottom line is you have parents that built their lives around the idea that their kids go to school, and you've taken that away from them, and now you've parents that are struggling to balance education. Their kid isn't getting educated. My own 9-year-old, he struggles really hardcore. He hasn't been to school in a year, and he struggles with learning online. He just does. He has ADHD, so you can't just leave. I have ADHD too, but you can't just leave him there. You have to make sure he's like paying attention, right? And I understand that. I'm that same way. My wife has to stay on my case all the time about paying attention. So I get that. But people have built their lives around it, and the schools need to go back into in-person, period. Well, how they've been not able to is because the governor suspended the statute that makes schools be in person. SB 1 takes away the governor's ability to suspend statutes, so therefore the schools have to open. That is why you've seen some lawsuits filed in Boone County to reopen the schools. In enters Representative Huff, which is a Republican. Surprisingly, when you first hear what occurred, you would think, what? But no, she's a Republican. She claims to be a far-right one, too, but we'll get into that here in a second. But enters Huff and Lewis. Now, Lewis, he stayed away from it after it was called out. He's playing it smart. Huff, on the other hand, decided she wanted to step to it. So enters Huff with Bill 208. Bill 208, what it would do would allow schools to continue to be NTI. Now, I do believe the correct fix to this is to require schools to be in person, but not to require parents to be in person. However, what this bill would do would be to allow schools to remain NTI, and the school board gets to continue to decide. I believe the school board has lost the right to decide when you have 80% of the teachers wanting to go back and you have 95% of the parents wanting their kids to go back, and yet they're still not back. And the only reason they're not back is because the teacher unions are still pushing for them to be closed. That's the only reason they're not back. If the teachers want to go back and the students want to go back, why aren't they back? Well, clearly the boards can't be left up to be able to make that decision. 208 would undo what we were doing with SB 1 and getting the kids back to school by allowing these schools to remain NTI. And in order to do it, the exact words are they would have 10 days of NTI. Anything past that, they would then have to request from the state. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think the Bashir administration is not going to approve it? Of course they're going to approve it. So we post that. We post the language of the bill. We're saying, hey, guys, come out. Don't support 208. Tell your reps not to support it. It's going to keep kids out of school. Then enters Huff, who decided to post on her Facebook that things were being misrepresented because we just got confused. Okay, Huff, I don't want to rain on your parade. You have voted on bills we have worked on. You have voted on bills with words that we have wrote. We understand how to write bills. We understand how to read them. We understand how to interpret them. Okay? This may surprise you to learn that you have voted on my words and you have voted yes. You have voted on other people that I'm associated with words and you have voted yes. So don't start telling us we don't know how to write bills because we're not in Frankfurt. That's an elitist BS line and I'm getting real tired of it. I have but a high school diploma, but that hasn't stopped me from writing words you thought deemed were worth a yes. So don't come after us and tell us we don't know how to read. Your people can read. All I have to do is screenshot the words from the bill, and they read it, and they know what's going on. But anyways, you decided to go ahead and say, oh, we're just confused. We don't understand. Okay. I understand that. We're just confused. I think your exact words were, we are confused because we are not in Frankfurt. You don't have to be in Frankfurt to know a bad bill when you read one. Okay? Now, your way of defending this bill is to say it's a funding mechanism, which it is. It funds schools that remain NTI after March. See, right now they have to return in order to continue their funding. This would stop that. Stop lying. I don't understand why you're lying about it. So anyway, so we put up that post, and then Huff and all of her genius decides to come on to one of our posts and start commenting. And so this tells you, this is how you know this bill was a good bill for the unions, because 120 Strong was actually, and Nima Brewer of 120 Strong was actually supporting this bill. And so that's a good indication the people that landed us with Bashir in the first place are the ones who are saying that this bill is a good bill. That's a good indication that this is a problem and you shouldn't support it. So Huff comes on and says a lot of different things. One, she has yet in our exchange to come out and say, yes, it allows NTI or no, it doesn't. She's doing that typical political, I'm going to work around speak. Honestly, I don't have the patience for that. I'm not really a politician. I'm just a guy who owns a coffee shop, who has a high school diploma, that can read and, has a basic understanding of how our government is supposed to work. And I just kind of want it to work that way. I don't want it to keep being cronyism and this whole inner circle BS that Huff supports. But what I can tell you is that I read the bill, I know what it says, and then I ask her a direct question, does it allow NTI or does it not? And her response is constant working around the issue. And then, of course, Nima comes on and starts defending her. And then they say, hey, we're friends. Okay, once again, I'm a little bit maybe of a radical. Or maybe I'm just more principled. But I can be friends with people who disagree with me. I'm friends with a lot of people who disagree with me. However, I will not be friends with a person who is actively working against my principles. The only reason you should be reaching across the aisle is to drag people over to your side. We need to start standing up for our beliefs and our values and for our liberty and our freedoms and the things we stand for, and we need to stop compromising. We need to start looking at this on the way it needs to be looked at. Okay, if for an example, if I don't believe in murder and you believe in some murder, for me to compromise at all is I have to immediately compromise my entire value of no murder. It literally, stop compromising. Stop being friends with people who actively work against you. That's such doublespeak. That's such political BS. Stand up for something and have some principles. If you can be friends with somebody who is actively doing things that you're against, actively, not just holds a belief different from you, but is actively agreeing with you, is actively working against you, it needs to stop. You cannot be friends with them. That's how you compromise. There is no middle. It can't be. Because if I have to give up my values to make it be a middle, there can't be one. There's only dragging them to your side of the aisle through political means, not through force, but through political means, and that is by calling them out on their BS, calling them out for what they stand for, and then getting them out of office if they need to be, or neutralizing them as far as their politicalness goes by exposing them for what they are, which are people who only care about hurting people, taking their stuff, and they care about the money side of things, and they don't care about just leaving each other alone, and they do not care about what it means to say, hey, I can have a different view, you can have a different view, as long as we aren't affecting each other, that's all that matters. And yet that's what we're seeing now, and I don't understand how these reps aren't getting it. This is where it's going. This is the culture shift going on here in Kentucky. We will not compromise. We deserve to be left alone. We deserve to own our property. We deserve to own our own livelihoods. We deserve to own it. It is ours. We have a right to it that's laid out in our Constitution. You cannot keep compromising away our rights and our values and then expect to keep getting voted for. It is over. It is done. We've seen what your compromises have got us, and you've compromised away our rights, and you've compromised our ability to be free one step at a time. It's not going to keep happening. Now, here's my call to action to all of you guys. I've posted the bills. I posted the number. Call that number. Say, support bill, support the bill listed here. My gosh, I can't keep track of them. There's so many. Support bill SB 213. Call them. Support bill SB 213. Tell them not to vote for HB 208. Then leave a message for the impeachment committee telling them Andy Beshear violated my First Amendment rights knowingly with premeditation, and he deserves to be impeached for breaking the law, and send them an email stating the same thing. And my call to action for you to do this, okay? Now, a lot of you people want to say, and I hear you, you're like, I feel like I call them. I feel like I email them. I feel like I do this all the time, and I don't know if it'll work. Here's the bottom line. Leave it on the field. You do not want to sit there complaining in a couple of months when legislation's out of session and we're stuck with whatever we've built over the last couple of months and sit there complaining about it, wishing you had done more. Leave it on the field. Do everything we can to get it done. Everything we can to get this addressed. We need to be active in it. It is natural for us to be passive because our personal views are to be passive. Because we passively don't want to affect each other's lives. We just want to exist and not affect anyone else, and nobody affects us, and it's a passive. We're naturally pacifists. However, this is a time for us to go out there and go be strong and make these calls, make these emails, and remind them the people who are against these things will never vote for you. We still might.